Welcome back to the Bluechip Breakdown, Vols fans. I'm your host, Bull. In today's video, we'll be talking about our baseball team in the College World Series down there in Omaha. Big matchup versus Florida State. Who do I think the starting pitcher will be for Game 1? What does Tennessee need to do to win this series, advance, and move forward? We have some other baseball notes to get to as well. And I also want to talk about if I could add 3 players in their prime from the course of all of Tennessee football history to this year's team, who would those players be on offense, defense, and special teams? And I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts down in the comments section. But as always, please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Please make sure also to hit that notification bell. And thank you so much for everyone that has been donating to this channel. If you would like to also donate, then the best way to do that is by scanning that Cash App barcode up in the top right-hand corner. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the video. All right, so starting off with baseball, we got some really big news that the whole team got an NIL deal from the Vol Club Collective, one of the best collectives in the entire country. We saw the players on their way to Omaha wearing the Vol Club Collective shirts with the number 24 on the front and back, symbolizing the 2024 season. The players got this money because they made it to the College World Series, something that the collective did last year as well. Sounds like last season, those were 4-figure deals at least. Might be around the same ballpark this year. Not quite sure if it's going to be a little bit more or not. Maybe it is. But I'm hoping that the players will get a little bit more once we win this whole thing because they deserve it. There's a lot of players that we don't get to see play that have contributed to the success of this team. And it's not just the players, but also the coaches, the staff, the entire program. It takes a village to get to this point. So very, very happy to hear the players getting compensated for their work. And hopefully it gives them a little bit of an extra spark heading into the College World Series. You know, while we're talking about the coaching staff and everyone else being a part of this, it sounds like Coach Tony Vitello will be getting a contract extension at the end of this whole thing. Once we win the College World Series, and Texas is a team that is probably going to take a strong swing at Coach Vitello. They might be able to pay him a little bit more than we can pay him. I think that he's going to stay put, though, just because I feel like he's, you know, he loves what he has here in Knoxville, right? Like, he talks a lot about growing up and watching his father coach. He said that he was kind of jealous of the program that his father had built, you know, the program that they had at that school in general, where every single sport is supported at the highest level. That pretty much embodies the Tennessee fan base and the Tennessee program. So obviously we are probably going to be taking good care of him, but you know, I don't think that if someone comes in with a little bit more money, that it's going to be enough to sway him and get him to leave us here in Knoxville. So excited about all of that. We also have 4 All-Americans. Blake Burke is a first-team All-American. Somehow Simo ends up being second team. I think that that's kind of a slap in the face. I don't know what's going on there, but there's absolutely no reason that he's not a first-team All-American as well. AJ Causey and Drew Beam round out the third-team All-Americans for this team. Very proud of them. We also have a transfer player from the JUCO ranks in right-handed pitcher Thomas Crabtree. He's a 6'4", 495-pounder who went to Collierville High School, but transferred to us from Pearl River Community College. And he's a really good one now. In 76 innings pitched, he had a 2.96 ERA, 105 strikeouts, and was 10-2 as a starter. So he's a guy that obviously we're going to be looking forward to having be a part of this team. It's going to really all be about pitching, and that's something that we'll be talking about here as we're looking at the matchup between our Volunteers and Florida State on Friday, June the 14th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN. And let's start off with Florida State's pitching. Number 1, Jamie Arnold is their ace, has 100 innings pitched, and he has a 2.77 ERA, 155 strikeouts, and he's 11-3 as a starter. He's that guy, right? Like, he's the one that we are going to have to try to find a way to hit off of. And UConn did it, so I believe that we can as well. I want to say that he gave up 5 or 6 runs versus UConn, so he is hittable, but that's going to be our toughest competition. I think that he's probably going to be the starter in Game 1. And the next guy is probably going to be Brennan Oxford. Now, he's got a 2.94 ERA with 52 innings pitched, and he has 65 strikeouts. He looks pretty good, okay? He's 2-0. He's going to be the next guy that I feel like we really have to try to find a way to hit off of. And then after that, I would probably go to Carson Dorsey. He's a guy that, you know, his ERA isn't phenomenal, 4.67, but he's got 81 strikeouts. So pretty much after the top 2 guys, y'all, these are all very hittable pitchers for us. Now, as we move on up, let's take a look at the batting, okay? They've got some guys that can hit. Let's take a look at the batting averages first. And there's a guy up here with a 6.67 batting average, but he only had 3 at-bats, so we're not going to count him. But outside of that, we've got 7 players hitting over 300. That's very impressive. Now, whenever you look at their home runs, James Tibbs has hit the most with 28, and they have 4 players with double-digit home runs. But on a bigger field, and we'll talk about the dimensions of the field here in just a second, it's going to be a little bit more important to pay attention to the doubles and the triples and things like that. So as far as doubles go, you can see that they're really good at that. And they don't have as many triples, but that's a pretty good solid look at what the lineup is going to be looking like and how their pitching looks. And let's take a look at Tennessee's pitching. Y'all can already tell that the numbers look a lot better for us. There's a lot more consistent higher end talent with us. And I think that that's going to bode most definitely well in our favor throughout this series and hopefully throughout the rest of the College World Series. I think that Stamos is going to be getting a start for us on Friday, and we don't know how long he's going to go. Maybe like an inning or two. That's usually what he does. Who comes in after him is, I guess, really anybody's guess, but it could end up being Causey. I think that we're going to be fine from a pitching perspective, even though we just looked at that lineup for Florida State, and it is a tough one. Now, let's take a look at our batters, and we can see that we have 7 players that's batting over 300. A couple of those guys don't really get to play a whole lot, but I think that that's a good sign. Now, let's take a look at the home runs right here. Boom. Okay. And we have 8 players with double-digit home runs on the season, and we are chasing a home run record. I believe that we're like 16 away from the single season record in NCAA history. I believe that we will have a pretty good shot to get there. Now, this is a bigger field, and we'll talk about that here in just a second. First, let's take a look at these doubles. We have 6 players with double-digit doubles, and there's not that many players, or, there's not that many triples, period, for us. I do think that in this series, we'll see a lot more of it because the field is significantly bigger than what we're used to playing on. And the field in the light green is going to be Lindsey Nelson. The field in the darker green, kind of like behind it, that's going to be Charles Schwab. That is where the World Series is played at. And you can see from, left to left center and right to right center, it's about a 15-foot difference from Lindsey Nelson. But then once you get to dead center, there's about a 18-foot difference. So it is going to be, a little bit of a different look. So a lot of people have been asking, is this going to be a big problem for Tennessee, especially because we like to hit a bunch of home runs? I always say this. Keep in mind that we're playing on the same field. And if you look at the way that we've been hitting home runs, a lot of them are over about, 340-ish feet, which is all that we need going to right or to left field to be able to hit it out of the park. I think that we have more than enough power throughout the entire lineup to still knock it out. Okay, I don't know how well the ball carries inside of this venue. I've heard that it doesn't carry that well. But listen, y'all, that's not what it's all about to me. I'm not too concerned about our hitting, our batting, any of that. My biggest concern is going to be, can we be consistent pitching? Can we find ourselves finding that command out on the mound? Now, that's the biggest deal, because if you look at Florida State's lineup, it's very similar to ours, where they've got guys all the way through that can hit for power and that do a good job of hitting the ball into some gaps. But I will say this, they'll swing at some junk. Okay, if you're out there and if you're kind of, working them, right? Like, you got to work these guys. You got to figure out what they're swinging at, what the strike zone is, all that. Find that out early, and then you got to be able to work and use that to your advantage. That's what I want to see us doing early and often. But for me, the biggest question mark looking at this bigger field is, how are we going to do out there fielding? Because it's a much bigger surface and there's more room, right? Like, there's, a less margin for error for us, because, if you have some balls get past you, it goes from a single to a double on a bigger field. It goes from a double to a triple on a bigger field. And, it could potentially go from a triple to an inside the Parker. That's what I'm more concerned about. I think we've got some guys out in the outfield that have some really strong arms, especially Tiers. He can get it in there. But we just have to do a good job of keeping the ball in front of us. I think that that's my biggest concern with the outfield, with the infield. Guys, listen, we have got to be more consistent and more clean fielding. As long as we do that, y'all, I feel like we are the better team. If you just kind of like look at those numbers, and we've gone through the stats on different videos, and I might actually just bring that up for y'all so that you can take a look at it. But if you go through all of the numbers, we are the better team on paper. And I think that we're just kind of gelling at the right time. I expect for us to go out and handle business tomorrow. And to hopefully we can go ahead and just win this series straight outright and move on to the next one. That's what I would love to see us do. I wouldn't be surprised to see us do it. And it'll be interesting to see if, if Coach Tony V wants to kind of switch up his pitching rotation. Doesn't sound like he's going to do that. We'll probably stick to what we have done. They got us here. That's the biggest deal for me, man. Everyone, stick to what you've been doing. Don't try to do too much. Okay. Don't try to get outside of yourself. Go out there and play baseball like you've done for your whole life. And we should be able to win it. Now, let's go ahead and move on to the 3 players that I picked to add to Tennessee's football team. All right, I'm going to be starting off with special teams. And there's a whole lot of players that were great at special teams for the University of Tennessee. But for me, if I'm adding one to this year's team, it has to be Jeff Hall. You need a good kicker, a great kicker that's clutch in those critical moments. We all know what he did for us versus Syracuse, winning that ball game, versus Florida, winning that ball game, and ultimately helping us to win a national title. You cannot do it without a really good kicker. I don't know who the kicker is going to be this season. Maybe could have gone with some of the Colquitts, but I think that Jackson Ross is a good enough punter that we don't necessarily need another one of those. A little bit of a question mark for me at kicker, so that's why I'm adding Jeff Hall. Now on to offense. Wow, so many Hall of Famers, so many great players to add here. Wouldn't go with Peyton Manning, right? Some of y'all might try to pick him. I think that he would run this offense pretty well. I think that he would be able to operate pretty much any offense well, outside of like a wishbone, something like that, wing T. But a passing offense, yeah, he's going to do well. But I would say that Nico is going to operate this offense better than anybody throughout all of Tennessee history could. And then, at this point, you're just asking yourself, what position do you want to target? Well, for me, I'm looking at running back. A lot of people are probably going to go with Jamal Lewis. If you want a running back, he's a great option. I think he might be the best running back in Tennessee history, at least from what I've seen. But I wouldn't put him in this system. I don't know how well he fits into the system. I would add a guy like Montario Hardesty, 6 feet tall, about 215, 220 pounds, runs downhill. He can catch the football out of the backfield as well. I think that he fits into this offense perfectly, especially if you look at what we have to start off this season, right? Dylan Sampson is going to be the guy, but Cam Seldon is down. We need a bigger body guy, that change of pace player in their prime that we know is going to run downhill and going to get that tough yardage. That's what this offense is predicated off of. So I would go with Montario Hardesty on offense. And on defense, if you know me, if you watch this channel, you already know who I'm picking right here. Eric Berry, okay? I could have went with Reggie White. You put him right there with a guy like James Pierce. That could get very ugly very quickly. But I'm going to go with Eric Berry just because in the secondary, we do have, I would say a little bit of a question mark, right? Like there's a lot of unproven talent there, but we need to have some good players on the back end. If you add one of the greatest safeties to ever play the game back there with a guy like maybe Kobe Thomas, I think that they kind of work hand in hand. They kind of feed off of one another. You could have also maybe thrown Deion Grant into this. But man, listen, Eric Berry back there on this team, I mean, don't even give me somebody on offense or on special teams. Give me Eric Berry on this defense. Forget about it. We're going to win the national championship with no questions asked. But that's my thoughts on that, y'all. Please let me know y'all's down in the comments section. That's going to be it for this video. Thank y'all so much for sticking all the way to the end. Please make sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share with your friends, family, and other volunteer fans. We'll see y'all in the next one. Thanks. Peace.